This year I did more diving in the UK than any of my previous 6 years of living here. It was set to be a fantastic summer. I was really fit. And then just one little thing happened and kind of went pear-shaped from there. Hey there, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Daniel Mann, and I hope you are having a fantastic December wherever you are in the world. Here in the UK, it's beginning to look a lot like Omicron. Anyway, we can't do much about that. But 2021, year in review. Whenever I go spearfishing, generally I have a camera with me and I'm filming, but I don't always make an entire video that goes up onto the channel. So this is some of the best bits that didn't make it to the channel. Let's get started. If you watched my video last year, you would have seen the massive fail I had on a sea bass when I was trying to look for them in holes. I shot one and it got off somehow. It was a very painful experience, and I hadn't forgotten that all over winter, and I had waited for my opportunity to get back out there, dive the same spot and look for that sea bass in a hole. The day was perfect, it was flat, it had great visibility, and I headed straight to my first mark that I'd already scouted in April. It wasn't looking particularly fishy, but I saw this mullet and I thought, better have something on the stringer than nothing. After I'd warmed up on that mullet, I headed to the spot that I really wanted to get to. I scouted this a few months earlier. It's a massive archway with 3 rocks kind of sticking together, and there's lots of spots for fish to hide. I anchored my float about 30 meters away from it and headed in the direction of that rock. I swam through the cave with my gun because I didn't want to have to do subsequent dives to untangle it all, and doing it this way means that you recover the fish and your gun in one go.
This is a spot I marked earlier this year. I knew that it looked like really good structure to hold bass. I've come back here today, the water's warmed up a lot, well into the season now, and this fat guy was just moseying about under that archway. Bit of a long shot, but I just trusted the gun and my aiming and managed to stone it outright. Picked it right off the bottom. Super happy with that.
I was well chuffed with this, especially after losing one in a similar situation last year. Made a good shot, recovered the fish. I was so pleased. On the way in, I saw another smaller bass, shot that, and headed back to shore with my 3 fish. Pretty happy with that. Good fun little shore dive. Whenever you get out on a beach shore diving and there's people walking past, they always want to have a sticky beak. What's that? Is that a cod or something like that? Generally, most of the public don't really know what fish species are. So this couple had walked past and the guy said, "Oh, is that a bass?" I said, "Yeah, it's a nice bass." And then he said, "Oh, probably about 3 pounds." And I was just lost for words. I didn't really know what to say. It's a pretty funny clip.
That looks about 3 pounds. Give it a solid 4.
So summer is well on its way. It's June and I head down to Cornwall for a week diving with Joe Pike and Mike Robinson, who's a chef. That later led to some work for me going to Iceland and filming some salmon fishing and a giant volcano, which was awesome. This is why I love my job. That's a volcano. One thing that really haunts me about that Cornwall trip is this bass. I'm swimming along this gutter, I've been looking for bass, I've seen a few smaller ones, and then this fat one is at the end of the crack. I've only got my short gun, so I need to get close to put a good shot in. But if I get too close, it's going to spook. That was a solid bass. But that wasn't going to be the worst thing that happened to me in the summer. Right at the start of July, I tested positive for COVID. And let me just say, COVID sucks. It wasn't a lot of fun for me. I had about 3 days where I was completely buckled. I didn't really get out of bed too much, and the other days it wasn't really a linear recovery either, because I would do some push-ups and then I'd be completely floored. I'd feel fine beforehand, do some push-ups, back in bed for a few hours. So Obviously, I was very worried about what my diving would be like after I got out of my isolation. On the last day of my isolation, the NHS called me and said, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "Should I get a PCR test to confirm that I'm no longer contagious?" Because I wanted to see my friends. I'd been locked up for 14 days after my wife got it as well. And they said, "Don't get a PCR test because you can test positive for COVID for up to 90 days on a PCR test." So I thought, well, I'm not going to Sardinia for the World Championships because you had to have a PCR test to go to Italy at the time, so I couldn't go represent GB. It would have been my first World Championship experience, but not to be this year. Towards the end of July, I started to feel better. I went for a run. It wasn't a very comfortable run, just a cheeky 5K, but I could still do it and I wasn't gasping for air, so I thought, let's go for a dive.
This is the first dive I've had since having COVID. I'm just going to take it easy on a nice shallow shore dive. I heard COVID's pretty bad for the breath hold. I haven't heard any good reports, but hopefully I'm not too affected. We'll see, but it's a gorgeous day. Good day for a swim nonetheless. I'm approaching my first spot that I want to check. It's about 600 or 700 meters out from the shore. Swim felt pretty good. Obviously it's hot, it's 27 degrees right now, so that's gonna make me sweat a little bit, but I feel pretty good overall, so I'm gonna have a few dives and see if I can hold my breath any longer than a couple of seconds.
I specifically chose an area that was a relatively short swim, not too far from the shore and nice and shallow for me. I had no idea what to expect, but things were actually better than I'd hoped for.
Definitely feel tired, but that's to be expected after sitting around in the house for the best part of 2 weeks. Overall, very relieved to know that I could still dive. Very, very relieved.
I know these two bass were only school-sized fish, but I was so stoked to be able to get out and still be able to do what I love, even after having COVID. On the last weekend of July, we headed down to Devon for my local spearfishing club's weekend away. It was camping, food, spearfishing. All that good stuff. I hadn't seen many of these people in over 2 years, so I didn't want to get the camera out around the campsite. I just wanted to chat to people and have a good time. So when I did get the camera out, it was out on the water. I hadn't expected the visibility to be quite so good, so I jumped in with my 80cm gun, probably a little bit short for this. I knew that this was going to be a long shot and my gun was boating a bit, that's why I put in a terrible shot. After I got that fish in the boat, I decided to get my 110, my longer gun, just to make it a little bit easier to try and snipe one of these bass. That's not supposed to happen. Some poor gear maintenance on my part there. I wanted to get my spear back. I don't fancy ordering another Pathos spear. Thankfully, I found my spear on the bottom, just where I left it, and while I was down there, it would have been rude not to. I spent the rest of the day filming with the big camera, and if you want to see the results of that, you can check out the video here. This was only my second dive after having COVID, and it still felt like hard work. For me, normally a 10-meter dive for a minute is quite an easy dive, but on this day, it just felt like it was exhausting. It wasn't dangerous that I was feeling lightheaded or blacking out or anything like that. I just felt like things were harder than they should have been. I was really busy throughout August and I didn't get to dive that much at all. Got to go to Iceland though, which was cool. I was doing a lot of running and cardio just to try and get my fitness back up because I had this trip booked to Greece in September. Now, by the time I got to Greece, I was diving pretty well. I could dive to maybe 90% of what I was diving last year. It was fantastic. I felt good in the water. Still not good enough to land my dream fish of a Dentex. You'll have to watch the video to check that out if you want to see a heartbreak. It's in that video. By this stage, it's October and the days are getting shorter, the weather's getting cooler, the seas are getting more and more rough, and it's hard to find a patch of weather to go diving in, but we had a small window and I teed up to go diving with Kevin Daly. Welcome to my Thursday afternoon here. Despite it looking like there's a few clouds out there and sunshine, it is quite cold. It's mid-October and today I'm going for a dive with someone I would consider the best spearfisher I've dived with over this side of the world. 6-time British champion, Kevin Daly. He's been on the channel before and he's going to take me on a not so short swim about 2 and a bit kilometers straight out that way in search of some late season bass. You don't get 2 weekends in a row without having a camera in your face, Kevin. You got off it on the weekend. How are you, mate?
All right, thank you.
What's the plan for today?
Put in a long swim in the wind. Try survive and hopefully get a fish or 2.
My hot tip for all young divers out there, or anybody, if you see somebody that's really good at something, copy exactly what they do and do it yourself, because chances are it works. Kevin's forgot his weight belt. 6-time British champion, forgot his weight belt. Only a mile left. Not a pleasant ride out here. The wind is a little more than anticipated, but 3,900 meters to go. Woohoo! You can't see the fish here because of the GoPro on my head, but there was a small bass sitting in this hole. I foolishly thought, first dive, there's a bass, it's going to be easy to find one today. First drop then, I saw a bass in the hole, but it looked a bit small. I thought I would hold off for a little bit later. Viz is not that great, but it's all right to hunt in. Saw a couple pollock as well. We'll see how the afternoon progresses. So you've only seen the one bass?
Yeah, it was just out, just got a glimpse of it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad it's not just me.
Kevin wasn't having much luck on the fish either. He'd only seen one bass out in the open. But the thing about Kevin Daly is he can seemingly pluck fish out of thin air. It's frustrating and inspiring all at the same time when he does this.
A bit quiet now. Shot that mullet early on, but haven't seen anything worthwhile shooting since. In saying that, I'm not on the best ground here, so I'll have to move along, see if I can find something a little bit better that's going to hold bass.
The sun was flirting with the horizon, and I didn't have many options left. This was a nice looking cave. It's really hard to see, but that is the rear section of a bass. This is where I made a critical error. Instead of shooting the fish then and there through the back end of the fish, I tried to go around the rock and spot it, but it left. Nothing more to do than enjoy the sunset, swim back in with Kevin, picking his brain the entire way back on how I can do better next time.
Ah, it doesn't get any easier this swim, does it? No, it doesn't. There we go. There's a very nice fish made. In a hole. He was in a hole, yeah. And the sunset.
I had no clue at the time that that mullet was going to be the last fish I would shoot in 2021. Speaking of 2021, I know there wasn't as much travel content on the channel as you would have liked to have seen, as I would have liked to have produced, but I have a trip booked to Norway next year, early in the season. I have a plan for Spain, Italy, France, and possibly Australia and New Zealand if they sort themselves out with their travel bubbles and corridors and all that sort of stuff. But 2022, I'm confident will be a much better year, more videos, new places, all that sort of stuff. So I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody out there that has still supported the channel, watching the videos, buying a t-shirt from diveeverywhere.co. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Subscribe if you aren't already. If you've got this far and you haven't subscribed, why not? I'll see you in 2022.